Sensing that he had reached the upper limits of his physical and martial arts skills, he pondered and reflected, and he realized that he was grateful.
Greetings, everyone. Today, we're going to be taking a special in-depth look at NEN in the anime and manga series HunterxHunter created by Yoshihiro Togashi. But it's not just going to be an explanation of the NEN types and a look at its operating system and what that all means. Plus, those videos have been done many times by people that did it a lot better than me and have a lot better knowledge of HunterxHunter than I do. Check out 2Spooky's video to know what I'm talking about. It's fantastic. Anyways, no, this video is going to be taking a look at what NEN means when reflected into the real world and our limited understanding of life along with some philosophical concepts. I also consider this video to be like a part 2 of my previous video covering the topic of Ode in the Berserk series. So I'm going to cover a few things that I mentioned in that video in case you didn't see it, but I recommend watching it anyways back to back to get my full thoughts and insights into the overall concept of life energy. In HunterxHunter, NEN is defined as a technique that allows a living being to use and manipulate their own life energy, known as aura. So already we have some interchangeable words. Life energy, aura. There's also other terms like ki, chakra, and as we learned in my previous video, odic force. Hell, even the Force from Star Wars. It's all different language to describe the same thing. But I feel as though the word aura is the most neutral term, and so let's stick with that. Aura is defined as the distinctive atmosphere or quality that seems to surround and be generated by a person, thing, or place, or a supposed emanation surrounding the body of a living creature and regarded as an essential part of that individual. In its essence, it's a culmination of everything that makes us us. It is, biologically speaking, a collection of our electricity, magnetism, heat, and other forces that are at work within our bodies that keep us living. But adding to that is that it also includes our thoughts, feelings, emotions, past traumas, physical abilities, and so on. It's just a term given to represent everything that is very distinctly you. And this aura flows through all living things, plants, animals, anything. In every cell, every atom of our body, aura flows. It's known in spiritual practices by many names, of course, but a key component of meditation involves focusing oneself in the present. In other words, allowing one to become aware and one with their own aura, detaching all unnecessary thoughts and filters, clearing the mind, and instead of trying to be something, just being. This brings you deeper into one's own self-awareness and can grant you access to releasing deep personal turmoil and blockages. This is, of course, a very blanket, basic overview, but it's just to give you guys the idea of the concept. Now, when it comes to HunterxHunter, there are many facets when dealing with aura, and I'm going to dig into some of the terminology and relate them to real-world practices. So basically, after this video, you can begin a NEN training regimen of your own. Let's take a look first at the 4 basic principles of NEN. The first is called TEN. So the concept in the series is the idea that yes, everybody has aura. For most people, it is constantly leaking out from the body. And this makes perfect sense in the real world terms as we are constantly burning calories. In a way, you can kind of look at a calorie as a unit of measurement for energy. So as we are constantly living, breathing, moving, exercising, we are burning those calories. Translation, we are losing part of our aura, but we are also always constantly replenishing that aura as well. In HunterxHunter, the energy is specifically leaving through the body through particular points called aura nodes. The first task of somebody learning NEN is to close off those nodes so that you can maintain that energy and use it for other purposes. So, TEN is a term used to describe a person focusing themselves so that their aura continues to encompass their body rather than flowing away from it freely. This in many ways is similar to meditation, becoming aware of one's own aura and being completely present to it. You aren't judging or panicking, you aren't focused on your anxieties or the past or the future. You remain locked in a present moment, focused and embracing all that you are. There's a simple little technique you can do to become aware of your aura that you can do right now. Sit in a comfortable position and hold your hands a few inches apart. It might even be better to rub them together first to create some heat through friction, which is also part of aura. Now, with your palms close together but not touching, focus on the space that's in between your hands. Some of you who are more sensitive might already feel a magnetic pull at this point. But don't think about any other part of your body. Focus purely on that space. Now pull your hands back apart a little bit, and then closer together, then apart, and then together again. Now, after you do this a few times, you're going to feel as if there is something physical between your hands, like there's something you're squeezing or crushing. But as you bring your hands back apart, you also feel like it's stretching. This is a part of your aura. You are focusing it into one spot and releasing your mind away from over-complex thought. If it's not working, it's probably because you are thinking rather than feeling. Only focus on the space between your hands. It will be hard at first if you have a lot of wandering thoughts, but try it a few times for a few days, and then at some point you will be able to feel the energy within your hands. A more advanced idea of this are people who practice Tai Chi and other physical meditations. They focus the entire body into particular movements to control the flow of one's aura. The slower the movement, the more aura you can build up. The second term is Zetsu, and this is where a character will in essence turn off their aura nodes so that no aura is leaving the body at all. So instead of letting it flow around you and keeping awareness of it, you're turning it off like a faucet. So the aura doesn't disappear, instead it remains inside of you and can be used for healing. In the Berserk Odd video I did, I talked about Reiki healing, which is a form of alternative medicine also called energy healing. Reiki practitioners use a technique called palm healing or hands-on healing, through which a universal energy is said to be transferred through the palms of a practitioner to the patient in order to encourage emotional and physical healing. Though Reiki involves one person transferring aura to another, so it doesn't fully apply to Zetsu. Honestly, Reiki, as most commonly practiced, would be more considered a Hotsu, but we'll get there. With Zetsu, you have your aura focused internally, so you can perform Reiki on yourself, though I don't have any particular techniques to show you for this one. It deals a lot with intent and hand placement. Also kind of falls away from Zetsu as it's described in Hunter x Hunter. I suppose Zetsu falls more into a placebo effect, but it's not tricking yourself into feeling something. You have to have a full committed belief to it, which is a trickier thing to do. And with the 4 basic NEN principles, I think Zetsu is the hardest one to translate into any kind of real-life function. The third principle of NEN is REN, and this is the fun one, or at least the one with the most relevance to talk about, and that you have probably experienced at some point in your life. REN is the concept of projecting one's aura outwardly, and by doing this can amplify the user's physical ability and intentions. So what is this in real life? Have you ever had a moment where someone walks into a room that you don't even know, and you immediately just feel what kind of person they are? Like you know without any evidence that this person is a scumbag, or you just feel like this stranger is important, and then they become an impactful part of your life. Or how about when a person shows up and completely ruins the mood of a room or conversation that multiple people were having? Another term for this kind of person is a buzzkill, or even an energy vampire. What's happening here is that you are sensing or feeling another person's aura. They are projecting their REN, unknowingly, or you are unknowingly perceiving it. The ability to sense energy is within all of us, but oftentimes it happens so naturally we don't even interpret it as sensing energy, which is actually how it's supposed to be. It is something natural. We are just so conditioned out of it that when we do sense energy, it feels unnatural. And now take the idea of REN and apply it to yourself. If you stare at someone with a pure, full intent of something, love or rage, that person will feel your feelings. You are transferring energy from yourself to them, and you're doing it through a strong, focused intent. This is done in Hunter x Hunter, most notably when Wing first shows it to Gon and Killua, when Hisoka's Ren keeps them from even moving forward, or when Neferpitou attacks Kite and gives the Ren gaze to Gon and Killua. Try going up against an experienced UFC fighter or martial artist without training. That's the same feeling Gon and Killua got in the series. Before the battle even begins, you will sense a clear intent and power from within them. Fear will begin to strike in you before a single punch is thrown. That fear is your body absorbing their aura that they are projecting. That fear is you sensing their Ren. The way to practice Ren is to have a clear, concise vision or intent in your mind, and then to project it through yourself. But let's switch it to something positive. If you want to let someone know that you love them, and they're across the room, don't say it. Just feel that love. Feel the emotion. Look at them and feel it. Soon, even if they're looking away, they will feel it also. They'll feel your Ren. They will look up at you without even knowing that you were looking at them. You will lock eyes, and that energy will find balance, like a thread connecting you and them. Lastly, Of the 4 basic principles of NEN, we get to Hotsu, and this is where Hunter x Hunter thrives as a powerhouse of a power system anime. Hatsu is one's own personal expression of NEN. This is transferring one's aura into something else to perform a particular function. But it is very unique to the individual and can really only be translated into one or a few particular skills. In the series, NEN has 6 categories, and depending on where you fall on the chart, will decide what kind of Hatsu you'd be able to come up with. The categories are Enhancer, Transmuter, Conjurer, Manipulator, Emitter, and Specialist. You are naturally one of the 6, but mastery of one will allow you to branch off to 2 on the other side that you can acquire a little bit, and further down in the chart a little bit less for the next ones, with the exception of Specialist, which is a rare type of Hatsu that only a few individuals are naturally accustomed to. Most of these NEN types delve into pure fantasy, as I'm sorry, no matter how much you train, you will never be able to conjure an object from thin air.
No, I'm not gonna run anymore. I have you know, this past year I've been training in the art of NEN, and I have created a conjuring ability. I'm gonna conjure big stick with some barbed wire. Yeah!
But I figured I would do the water deviation test for you anyways, just to see what NEN type I am. Depending on what happens to the water and the leaf, it will determine your NEN type. Use Ren on the glass to see what happens. So, this might take a while. In the meantime, I'm going to focus on an aspect of NEN touched on very slightly in the series, but reflects most prominently to real life. It's briefly stated that since everyone has aura and the ability to take hold of their NEN, that some people tap into it without even realizing what it is. For example, renowned philosophers, scientists, artists, painters, athletes, fighters, and the list goes on. Those few who have so highly dedicated themselves to their skill or craft, it almost seems as if they're using magic to achieve their success. It's not magic. None of this is. These are just terms to explain something that is already happening. Just like aura refers to a combination of many things that makes up one's own self, you could infer that Hatsu being the specific ability of someone that has dedicated their life to a particular craft. Those ones whose aura you feel even though you've never met them. People like Michael Jordan, Muhammad Ali, Albert Einstein, Bruce Lee, Buddha, Jesus. All these figures have reserved a spot in history by being so authentically themselves, not following the path given by others, not accepting the way things are, but instead carving out a path that is very uniquely theirs. Is that not the driving force and principle behind Hatsu, a personal expression of NEN? Not something that can be taught or replicated, but something very specific. If there's any real-life representation of Hatsu, it must come from those who have utilized their life energy, their aura, to make a name for themselves by mastering something they could in only their way. But that's not all when it comes to NEN. There's plenty more to talk about, but I will just briefly go over a few more concepts. We have Gyo, which is the NEN user who focuses more than the usual amount of aura into a particular body part, and this is usually used on the eyes, enabling them to see another person's aura. Many practices have ways that they believe that they can teach themselves to see aura. And since aura is an amalgamation of multiple things, you wouldn't really be able to see it conventionally. It's more so something you feel, as we discussed earlier. But if one continued to train in the idea of controlling and manipulating energy, with focused meditation and healing, then who knows what we might open ourselves up to be able to see. Vision, like many things, is illusionary in nature. We are limited by our eyesight strengths and manipulations of light and angles and all those things. As stated in Star Wars,
"Your eyes can deceive you, don't trust them."
In is a term used to describe a NEN user who is able to hide their NEN from others. So similar to Zetsu, but instead of stopping it from escaping your body, you mask it. I translate this to those who train diligently in the art of not being seen, being able to control the sound of their steps, being able to control their breathing, breathing softly as not to be heard. You are shadowing everything about yourself, including your emotions and intent, and it can make you nearly invisible to others. The difference between someone entering a room boisterously or someone who can walk by in plain view and still be undetected. Or even something as simple as someone who is a brilliant con artist, able to conceal their true intent to the point where they can reflect an intent that is actually not their actual objective. Many people in business suits can exemplify this, as long with a few exes of mine. But moving on. N is a term meaning a NEN user who can envelop circular space around them using REN and can use that to sense or detect anything that enters that space. This one is really simple, as it just means in real life someone who is extremely perceptive, someone who could sense that sneaky person that we just talked about who is mastered in, someone who can sit alone with their eyes closed and know you have entered a room without seeing or hearing it. This would have to be someone with a very clear mind, deeply within the present moment, unentwined from various negative or stifling thoughts. Shu allows a NEN user to surround an object with their aura. Well, let's go back to the very skilled athletes and others who have mastered a specific skill. I can interpret this as a football player who throws the ball with all the energy, force, determination, and willpower that he has, throwing it with the absolute unwavering intent that it will reach the next player. Perhaps some of that player's aura left with the ball and enveloped the ball with the energy of that purpose, and then somehow, seemingly miraculously, it makes it to its intended target. There's also been cases of monks who have practiced martial arts through their whole lives, and through a series of movements can direct their aura, take an ordinary needle, and engulf it with their aura so that when it's thrown, it can actually pierce glass. Ko allows a NEN user to focus all principles of NEN into a body part, causing a big power-up. So focused on a punch, it would be devastating if it hit. Perhaps applied to real life, it would be like Bruce Lee's one-inch punch, where he could project a ton of force into a strike with barely any movement or any build-up. Maybe Bruce Lee was actually practicing Ko behind the scenes of all of his movies. Then we have Ken, which is similar but for defensive techniques, enveloping your body with aura for protection. Martial arts training. They can focus Ko to areas of their body to protect them from attacks. Some monks can be kicked in the throat or balls and take virtually no damage. How is this possible? Through energy, through aura, through training. It all comes back to the same thing. Ryu takes Ko and Ken and applies them together to make them interchangeable so that you can essentially have a fight using offense and defense at the same time. So try using the one-inch punch while maintaining the will to get kicked in the balls and keep on going. Two more things to touch on here. And look, I've barely scratched the surface with both NEN in Hunter x Hunter and real-life similarities. This is just meant to be a quick overview. Another aspect of NEN in Hunter x Hunter is NEN After Death, or post-mortem NEN. Here the idea is pretty simple. If a person's desire, will, conviction, determination is so strong that they have control over their NEN, then even after death, that NEN will remain in effect. First seen in, spoiler alert, jump ahead like 40 seconds if you don't want to know, Neferpito's death. Her will to serve the king was so powerful that her NEN took control of her body after death and still used it to attack Gon. So what does this mean when applied to real life? Well, look. Matter cannot be created or destroyed. All that is, exists, and will continue to exist even after we are dead. Our bodies will decay or be burned or become part of the earth, but they don't disappear. Every atom in your body will remain and will become part of something else. Everything around you, your body, your clothes, the chair you sit on, your food, the air, it was all part of space at one time, and then part of something else, and so on until it was converted into your body that you are in the here and now, a piece of the universe temporarily experiencing itself before you become something else yet again. You could call it reincarnation, but kind of a constant reincarnation. Part of your atoms probably were part of another person hundreds of years ago, and maybe that person believed in something so strongly it continues to be carried in those very atoms. Maybe you have a desire or enjoyment for something that is inexplainable and has nothing to do with your egoic personality. Where does it come from? Maybe it's NEN after death. Ghosts and spirits, what are they? Well, to me, and this is just my opinion, I feel like if someone has an intense energy towards maybe the feeling of incompletion or just rage, those parts of one's aura could be so strong that they linger after the body dies. You are just in the presence of negative energy remaining after death, and you are picking up on it, and in some cases you use Gyo so that you can see the ghost. But what you're seeing is leftover energy and a feeling so strong that it couldn't pass on with the rest of the atoms. This is just my interpretation of what a ghost is, so take it with a grain of salt. Let's talk about NEN beasts. There are a few kind of NEN beasts in Hunter x Hunter, but essentially it is simply a creature created by NEN, or aura. And more often than not, in the series, the NEN beast is created from some sort of ritual. Whether it's the NEN exorcist creating a fire and then throwing like a voodoo doll into it, or the Kaken king using the blood of his children in some kind of urn to create their protective NEN beast. The idea here is that it's manipulating energy through ritual. These are more considered the dark arts or witchcraft, using spells, but instead of thinking of a spell like magic, think of it as a way to manipulate the flow of energy and make it do what you want to. Putting a curse on someone generally means that you have to take it very seriously. Just like with most of the previous concepts, you must have absolute resolve for it to work. You are invasively coming into someone else's aura and manipulating it. And usually this is considered to have dire consequences even on the ones making the curse as well. Think about the Untouchables in the current Succession War arc of Hunter x Hunter. They have a curse that is brought about by wishing death on a particular individual every single day, constantly focusing that energy to perform a particular task. Then they must take their own life in front of that person to enact the curse, a buildup of negativity, and with the NEN After Death concept, in death, bestowing that negativity onto the target, which causes their curse to take effect. Ever notice how large groups of people create a flow of energy? Go to a concert, or to a place that I would never go to, a big protest in a large city. They've been happening very frequently in America right now, and I sense nothing but just an overflowing of negativity. When you have that many people in one spot that all collectively feel an injustice, that energy gets amplified. Imagine it's like all of them using REN at once, and that energy just explodes from the area, making anyone in a different vibration feel absolutely uncomfortable. It's as if something takes over their bodies and individual thought is gone. In other words, there's no way that you could perform a Hotsu here as part of that environment. You become part of the collective whole, and that's one of intense frustration and anger. So if I haven't made it clear, even through this video and the last one, energy is something I find to be true and have strong belief in. I think that it has a spiritual and scientific backing, but that's the way that I interpret it. You may feel differently about it, and that's okay too. And a show like Hunter x Hunter diving as deeply into these concepts as it does really impressed me, and I love digging into all the aspects of NEN and figuring out how to apply it to the real world. I hope this video was at least very entertaining to you. As far as my aura is concerned, I spread positivity and positive vibes from my screen to yours, and I hope you all have a wonderful day and make it through whatever it is that you are going through right now. Thanks as always for watching, guys. I really do appreciate it. Go ahead and like this video if you want to, subscribe if you want to stick around, consider joining to my Patreon perhaps, but until next time, Hotsu!